This is a show about jewelry, why we wear it, why it matters, how it's made, and what it means. I'm Alex D, and I turn cannabis into gold. I make mind-blowing jewelry in gold, silver, and platinum from cannabis plants here in Canada for stage, screen, for people who want to rock crazy jewelry. I'm the cannabis goldsmith. Okay, I'm not going to talk about the gold price, which I think will be $5,000 soon. So, buy gold. No, I don't know whether you should buy gold or not. You know what? If I'm telling you to buy gold, it's probably wise not to buy gold. Every single time I try and invest in something, it's too late. So I've now decided it's an indication of opposite effect. So I remember during the .com boom, I remember sitting in a taxi in the back seat in Toronto, and the taxi driver was telling me about all the .coms he was buying and stuff, right? And I was getting really excited too, and I was like, I think I'm going to buy some of this or that. Absolute wrong time. As soon as you hear the taxi driver telling you what stocks to buy, it's well past that. And if they're telling you to buy gold, you probably are too late for that too. And I'm way too late for that. But anyway, us jewelers only buy gold when we need it. If we don't need it, we don't buy it. If we have a project that we need, a customer that needs it, then we'll buy it right then. We don't buy it and hold it. And we don't have stock. We don't keep inventory of gold. Nobody does except Fort Knox, I guess, or the gold investors in gold. But anyway, I'm not here to talk about gold today. I'm here to talk about the National Gallery of Canada and other big art institutions in Canada that I think are pretty much far removed from the reality of art in Canada. They've moved into a kind of political layer, and it's really quite sad. Recently, I sent an invitation email to the new head of the National Gallery of Canada, Jean-François Bélisle, to come and visit our big community fair in southeastern Ontario, the Spencerville Fair. As I've mentioned, I designed an incredible belt buckle in sterling silver for the fair. But the fair has this massive art component. Huge art buildings filled with thousands and thousands of pieces of art from people in the community, from kids and old people. And it's just a fantastic thing to see, because when you walk into a room like that, you see the art that the community produces, right? And in this case, southeastern Ontario, and which is only 30 minutes away from where the National Gallery is located. So I thought, I'll send this guy an email, because he, when he was picked or whatever when he got this job, he said that he claimed that art can change society, and that he wanted to collaborate with artists across the country. This is why I sent him the email invitation to come down and see this masked silver masterwork at the fair, and also to check out the other amazing art there, because there's so much, right? But I never even got a response. And I sent him an email like weeks before this event. I never even got an acknowledgement or a response. So I contacted my MP, my member of parliament here in the area, and I said, look, can you give them a kick in the pants? That's what my exact words, but, a nudge, just to see what they're going to do, if they're going to come to this thing or what, right? An acknowledgement. And then I didn't hear anything. And then at the fair, I saw the MP, and he said to me, Michael Barrett, he said, you know what, they responded to us. They said that Mr. Bélisle is traveling, so he won't be able to attend, but we can, whatever. I never got the response. I'm the guy who sent the invitation. And he's responding to the MP. Now, this to me is an indication that this gallery is a political institution. It has nothing to do with Canadian art. Mr. Bélisle is claiming under his leadership there's a strong focus on an emphasis on community engagement, virtual and physical forms, learning and community-based programming. This is what this whole thing was about, and I invited them or people from the gallery to come and see it, and they have no interest in it. They have no interest in it whatsoever. Our art institutions in Canada are so distant from the art that Canadians are producing. It's sad. It's sad. You know? He says he wants to ensure the gallery plays a leading role in Canadian visual arts, both nationally and internationally. Well, this is how you start. You start reaching out to the community, man. Jean-François Bélisle, you go to see some art in the community. You go, look, it's not cocktail parties and canapes, but I guess maybe that's what these art, I've been to these things in the city when I was living in Toronto for 30, 40 years or whatever, and international galleries, and they're all snooty. They're snooty and they're cold. And I think they all say they want to change that. They want to get connected to the art community, but they don't. This is just lip service, as far as I can see. But this new director, really, you at least should respond to my email to acknowledge its receipt. That's what you have to do to me, Mr. Jean-François Bélisle. Look, I wrote King Charles a letter this year, and Buckingham Palace responded. So why can't you? You don't respond to the MP, you respond to me. I wrote you the invitation, all right? So if you're not going to respond, that's fine. But it's indicative of your interest in Canadian art, which seems to be limited. Or the galleries. The Art Gallery of Ontario is another one. They're hiding behind this layer, this DEI. They've built up the battlements so high from years of DEI layers and stuff. They're afraid to talk to people who send them inquiries about just basic stuff. They won't even talk to the community anymore because they're afraid, they're frightened. They might say something wrong, or they might do something wrong. Look, art is about taking risk and about taking chances. Get out of your ivory towers and connect with the community. People in the National Gallery of Canada, people in Art Gallery of Ontario. You big institutions, you need to get out more. You need to see what the hell is going on in the country. I have to tell you, at the Spencerville Fair, the art building was just stunning. It was stunning. The quality of the work was extremely high, even from kids in our community. This is where the art is going to be coming from here, and from other fairs and other community-based things where we can see the art that the community is making, because the galleries are not showing it to us. The fairs are showing it to us. The galleries are showing what the politicians are telling them to show us. Maybe. I don't know what they're showing us, or what their benefactors are telling them to show us, or what their funders are telling them to show us. But truly, the art in Canada is coming from the community. And in order to see it, go out and go to these county fairs. Go to art shows in your community. Go to local craft shows even. You will see stuff that will blow your mind. And no, this is far too basic for these institutions, these snooty institutions. The reason why they're museums. They're not galleries. The reason why they feel so cold, so they feel ice cold when you go into them. And it's not that they turn the temperature down to keep the art fresh. No, it's the attitude. It's their attitude. It's the snooty attitude, the freezingness of it all. So now they've decided, okay, they're going to focus on inclusion of Indigenous weighing, knowing, and being. Okay. Does that mean they're going to exclude all other stuff? You know, if they start picking favorites like this, you know, art is squishy. Art is squishy. You know, if you start deciding, you know, you pre-select certain groups that can only be shown in your space or that you only respond to, then what's the point of you? That's what I'm saying as an art curation entity. Look, you know, these institutions are supposed to be promoting Canadian art, finding Canadian art, surfacing it to the world. They have to get into the community, and they have to get out of their offices. That's what they have to do. Ugh, man. But you see, they're not working artists, most of them. Some of them, I think, were once artists, maybe back in the day, you know. But they're not anymore, maybe. Maybe they're just bureaucrats, right? They collect the paycheck, and they check the boxes on the form, and then file it away. You know, it's creating documents. But there was no document created for my email that I sent to the director of the National Gallery, so I hope he can respond, at least, with an acknowledgement of receipt of my email. Okay, that's something very simple. Look, if the king can respond to me, so can you, Mr. Bélisle. There we go. Now, that's my rant. Now, I'm thinking, okay, if the galleries are not serving the purpose, what else can we do to grow art in Canada and showcase it to the world? Well, we can use online. We can build what I try and do with my own art. Okay, they're not going to show my art. You know, these places are not going to show my art or photography or anything. You know, the photography, the documentary film, when it comes out, they're not gonna show any of it. You know, and why? Because, you know, I'm not a benefactor to them. I'm prickly, right? Artists can be prickly. You know, this is what we're about. Yeah, if you're an artist, you know this. We stand up for stuff, right? We're not afraid. We don't run away when a challenge is put to us. Even something simple, you know, a change of color, a change of a tone on a record you're trying to make or something. We take risk, right? But these arts entities don't want to take a risk. They want to, God knows what they want to do. So there has to be some other way that we can showcase Canadian art to the world. And we can use the internet. I'm using this podcast to talk about the different art and stuff that I've seen in my community. And so, you know, I don't have a lot of listeners. I don't even know how many listeners I have. But I'm trying to get art out of get the galleries' heads out of their butts and get the artists' work into the galleries. Our local artists. Let's you know, art is more important now than ever, especially in Canada. We have a rabid nightmare thing happening just south of our border. We need art now more than ever because it helps us process the societal upheaval that is happening next door and is going to bleed into Canada. We need art. We need it for that. We don't need snooty. We need community. Yeah, man. I didn't even want to rant today. I wanted to talk about the gold price. But I already talked about the gold price, didn't I? Anyway, so that's it for you museum gallery people. God, man. But it must be a hard job to decide what art goes on your wall or whose email you respond to. Like, oh, shall I respond to this artist or not? You know, is he Indigenous? If he's Indigenous, maybe I should respond to him. But if not, you know, maybe not. Even though the company is named Tribe, Yeah, who might be indigenous? It's not indigenous. They figured that out. Otherwise, they would have been on the phone calling me immediately. Like they seem to be choosing the art based on race characteristics or gender. I don't understand this. Like, I don't understand it. They seem to be thinking more about race than about art. And this is not right. Anyway, I don't know what to do about any of that. I mean, I can make art. That's what I can do. And I'm processing art. I'm processing it through art. I'm making art pieces. My art doesn't have race or gender. It's art. It takes the natural world and it makes it into silver and gold and amazing pieces of jewelry made in Canada from Canadian plants and from Canadian ideas and from Canadian talent and skill and artisanship and goldsmithing. You know, this is what it's about. It's not about gender or like race or, you know, my pieces aren't about that. Maybe yours are. Maybe that's what you want to do. But I don't think statistically there's enough of those artists to design a whole national gallery policy around. Or maybe there is. Who knows? Well, look, that's politics, right? That's not art. You know, I knew immediately when they responded to the politician and not to the artist where their heads were up there. And that needs to change. You know, my tax money is funding them. So I'm going to be prickly. I'm going to say, okay, my tax dollars are going to this. Why? You know, why? But it must be hard to be a curator to pick what goes on your wall and what doesn't go on your wall. But there's a certain power to that. And I think maybe some of these folks are in it for that. They're in it for the power of being able to choose or exclude other people's art from their walls. It's just like, I guess, dentists, right? I was reading a story a long time ago about dentists, not my dentist. Doc Emma's adorable. But the dentist, there were studies done that a certain percentage of dentists got into dentistry because they were sadists and they enjoyed hurting people. And this was why they got into dentistry. Now, I'm thinking, you know, well, this is not the dentist you want, let me tell you. But maybe some of these gallerists, they got into it for, you know, the ability to choose. That's why they got into it, you know. So anyway, I hope that Jean-François Bélisle may come to realize his impressive statements about what he's going to do with the National Gallery and what his position is there and how it is thinking. I hope it all comes to fruition, but it doesn't seem to be so far. He's only been there for 2 years and he's traveling now, so who knows? Anyway. You know, I was thinking, where was he traveling anyway? Because it had to have been important. So I did a search. I did a couple of searches. I did a Google search and some AI searches about Mr. Bélisle, where he was traveling. He's a public figure, after all, the head of the National Gallery. So maybe there's been some record of him being somewhere. So I did some searches, and what I found was fascinating. I found that when he first became director, he made some kind of statement about wanting to decolonize the gallery and that how all galleries were colonial entities. And then he disappeared from public view until recently, when there was an annual public meeting of the National Gallery, and it took place on September 8th in Fredericton. Now, this is where he may have been instead of accepting my invitation. However, this event was over before my invitation. so I thought, oh, an annual public meeting. This is great. I can learn about what the gallery is thinking about or what they're going to do in the coming year. But here's the thing. There's no record of it. There's no record of it. This is really strange. There's the annual public meeting, the notice that it was going to occur on September 8th in Fredericton, but there's no record of anyone attending. There's no social media posts about it. There's no photography online whatsoever about anyone who attended this meeting. On the National Gallery site, there's no video of it. There's no record of it. There's record of past meetings, annual meetings, and video, but there's none about this one. What's strange is there's no local news stories about it. This is a huge thing. This is the National Gallery of Canada is having their annual meeting in your town, in Fredericton. There's no news coverage of it. There's nothing. There's nothing. It's absolutely a black hole of information. Now, is this connecting to the public? Is this connecting to the community? I think what it seems to me is they seem to be intent on controlling what they say to the degree that nothing is being said or nothing is available to the public. Now, if you are going to be encouraging community connections and stuff, how are you going to do that if you're not going to be talking to the public or if you're hiding from the public? So anyway, this is what I'm wondering. This is the most shocking thing I think I found today. I was doing research trying to find out what the annual public meeting was about, and there's absolutely nothing. There's nothing. Look, if you do something at all, it's available on social media. We're being tracked constantly by everyone is taking photos of everything. I think you've noticed this. People have phones. They're taking photographs of absolutely everything. If something happens, there's 10 photographs of it online from different people. There's comments about it on social media, whatever. There's nothing, zero, about this annual public meeting of the National Gallery of Canada. Now that is indicative. That shows zero social or community impact. Zero. Zero organic impact. So maybe they ought to look at that too. They need to get out of the office and get into Canada. That's what I think. And I'd be happy to talk to them about it, how they could do that. I've got suggestions as to how they could connect with Canadians in Canada and make the gallery something that the country can be proud of. So what am I working on now? Oh, I finally got a sugar maple leaf. I actually picked it off a tree in the front yard. I've been out looking at the tree. I've been picking leaves off it, looking for the exact right leaf, and I found it. And I got it. I modeled the leaf. I thickened it by almost 1 millimeter, and I captured that. So it's actually, so if you can picture this, a 3-inch diameter circle for a belt buckle, a circular belt buckle, and in the center of it, a sugar maple leaf embedded in this circle, but lifted off maybe 1 millimeter to make it pop off the base. So the background of this buckle will be dark, like black and silver, and the leaf, which is lifted slightly off the surface, will be silver. So it will polish on your pants as you are wearing it on the belt. The leaf will polish, but the recessed back won't polish. So you'll have a contrast with a silver leaf on a darker silver background. It's beautiful already. I looked at the model last night. I've been going really slow with it to make it perfect. And the model is perfect. It captured this. These sugar maple leaves are kind of, they're not leathery. They have a kind of, they can be frail, but they have a robustness to them that cannabis leaves, for example, don't have. You can be more aggressive with them, but you have to soften them up before you can work with them. So anyway, I had to figure all that out, and finally I got it to take, and it just, it looks great. So now I have to work on the frame of this particular buckle. Now this buckle is going to be a sugar maple leaf buckle. And the frame on the background, I'm thinking I can use tree branch, maple leaf, maple tree branch going around. They warped around the outside, like canoes. Like the indigenous used to make canoes out of birch bark, and they would heat up. They would heat up and boil the stems of the trees in order to bend them around like rope to lash pieces of the canoe together. So I'm going to try and bend some maple twigs around the outside of this frame and then model that. So that will be the frame of this sugar maple leaf buckle. And I think it'll be really impressive. So I'm going slow with that. And this is just a speculative piece I'm just making now, just to see how fabulous it can be. So we'll see. There's no destination for this yet, but there might be. Anyway, I met some people at the Spencerville Fair who organize these agricultural fairs right across Canada and across Ontario. There's a lot of these fairs. They're in every agricultural community. It's a national phenomenon in Canada, and very old too. Like these fairs go back, like the Spencerville Fair, since 1855. There's some go even older than that. There's one in Nova Scotia that's 1700 or whatever. I met these two women at the fair, and they were pretty impressed with the buckle, and they said, look, I said, look, this might be able to help your fairs. We can perhaps make something for you like this that you can raffle off at one of your fairs. I mean, this would work for medium to large county fairs. A sterling silver buckle with the fair's design and logo and emblem and symbols built into it that they could raffle off. And these objects raise more money than the cost of the object because they're spectacular and they draw eyes. And at a county fair, it's like an object the men in particular want to buy tickets for. They want a giant silver belt buckle. That's what they want. So, normally these fairs have quilt raffles and stuff like this. Yeah, and women buy tickets for that. I buy tickets for that. But the belt buckle, the thing I noticed about the fair, that the men were buying the tickets as planned. The men wanted to win this buckle, and so I suggested to these two women that this is a strategy that they could use for other fairs, say medium to large county fairs across Canada, to raise funds in an expense neutral way. So they're not forking out money, but they're just making money for the fair, for the fair coffers, for the budget, instead of spending money. And I think it would be an amazing thing because it's actually creating art pieces. These are art pieces. These are sculptures with heritage value, with a kind of cultural heritage significance, with fair symbolism and stuff. They're important cultural objects, too, besides being a great prize to win at a raffle at a county fair. I'm thinking something like the Royal Winter Fair is huge in Toronto. I mean, if they raffled off a buckle, if I did a buckle for them, for example, and they raffled it off, I could see them raising, I don't know, tens of thousands of dollars from something, because there's so much traffic there. And if they had announcements that went out into the room, into the big exhibit room, get your raffled, your trophy buckle ticket at the booth or whatever, to drive traffic to the sales booth every so often, they would, I could see them raising 10, 20,000, 30. It depends on the traffic going through the thing. But the Royal Winter Fair is an incredible fair. It's like, I love it. I mean, I've been a few times. When I was living in Toronto, I'd go. I just love seeing the animals and the vendors too. Incredible vendors down there. Really a cool event if you're in Toronto to check out the Royal Winter Fair. Anyway, so I pitched one of these women already, and I'm going to pitch the other two, but this idea of doing premium sterling silver Canadian-made trophy belt buckles as prizes to raise funds for their fair entities. And, these are charitable institutions mostly, and all of them, I think. They're so they can get raffle licenses and all this stuff quite easily to make this happen. So anyway, I think this would be great because it allows art to get out there into the community. It allows the community to get input into the art, and it creates visibility for Canadian art. It inspires local artists in the community. You see this buckle and see what can be done with sculpture. We can make things in sculpture out of precious metal or plastic or whatever, but we can do different things. And youngsters get ideas and they go, oh, maybe I can make something out of wood, or maybe I can paint something. And this is where art comes from in Canada. So there. So that's the scoop. What a wonderful fair. Congrats to all the fair people who are sleeping. Like, I bet they're sleeping. I've never seen people work that hard in my life. The fair committee people at the Spencerville Fair, holy smokes, they worked their butts off. They did just a wicked job. It was just so incredible what they did. What an achievement. Congratulations. A good 170th for sure. Anyway, that's it for me this week. Before I go, yesterday I was in the water. I fired up a waterproof metal detector. I went into the river, and I was up shoulder deep in the St. Lawrence River wading with a metal detector. And I was wearing headphones. It was 20 degrees. I was wearing a light wetsuit, nothing heavy, just something light. And walking in this beautiful water, I could see fish swimming in the water. I didn't find any gold, mind you, or anything. But I swinging the detector back and forth like the old codger I am, enjoying the fall sun. Man, was it nice yesterday, I tell you. It was beautiful. And I saw fish in the St. Lawrence River. Amazing. The Cannabis Goldsmith is produced by Tribe Communications, Inc. in the Thousand Islands area of Ontario, Canada. We recorded in our studio in southeastern Ontario along the St. Lawrence River, where we can see America across the river. Subscribe to the Cannabis Goldsmith wherever you get your podcasts. Follow the show and tell your fellow artist friends about it. It's the only artist podcast coming to you right from a studio every Wednesday morning. We'll see you next week on the Cannabis Goldsmith. Oh, if you want to reach me, send me an email, alexd@cannabisgoldsmith.com. Thanks for listening.